And we're back.
The honest hour. Woohoo!
Good times always had in these things, right?
That's right. That's right.
I'm gonna keep people guessing on my background. Just where's Keith today? What are we gonna be looking at? You at the back of my house today is.
Well, I created a new background, which everybody who knows me will find very appropriate.
We have called you the honey badger from time to time.
The honey badger strikes again. Well, Mr. Alba, tell us about what you're seeing in San Francisco right now.
Man, the hits just keep on coming when it comes to real estate on stuff like this. But you know what? I think one of the byproducts that we've seen from the COVID and the shutdown of the economy and basically keeping everybody inside is there's a lot of businesses that realized coming into work isn't necessary, right?
Yeah.
That showing up into an office, being, around people isn't required with today's technology, with the internet, with all of this sort of stuff. There's options.
That's right.
And so working from remote is becoming more and more something that businesses are implementing.
I was reading an article about Amazon, Google, and Facebook all asking themselves, does it make sense to have these big campuses where you get foot massages while you're working and a chef is cooking you goulash for lunch? Yes, that gives people satisfaction, but might they not be getting more satisfaction from being able to stay at home and be more productive?
Right. I mean, who knows? I guess time will tell in terms of the productivity on those sorts of pieces. But what we're seeing is, the Googles or Amazons or something like that, typically their headquarters are in major downtown cities, right? And so the commutes for those workers are a nightmare. So what a lot of people were doing were buying properties in and around their work or renting properties in and around their work. And now that commute is no longer a requirement on a 5-day-a-week type of a basis, you're seeing this migration away from the city centers.
Right. Because the real estate is less expensive.
Less expensive, maybe a little bit more space. You're not necessarily stacked on top of, people that you don't know or neighbors that are throwing parties at all hours of the night or what have you. And rental rates in San Francisco are starting to show exactly that.
Yeah.
So in May, year over year, the rental rates dropped by 9%.
9%?
9%. So what they were getting last year for the same property is now essentially 10% cheaper for the people out there. June's numbers are even higher. So there's a continuing downward trend. June is 12% lower than June of last year. So
to put that into perspective, most people who use property management to manage their properties pay around 10%. I mean, it varies, right? But that's a common rate that you see. So if you're looking at one of your most expensive features of owning real estate rental income properties, it's that property management. Well, we just lost more than the property management portion of that pie just to depreciating rents. What do you think is causing this, Keith?
It's exactly the people flooding. There's not the demand for those properties that are close into those city centers, and so when you have an oversupply, there's downward pressure that is on pricing in order to try and draw in and draw back some of that demand. And so this is, I think, a little microcosm of what we're talking about and what we're going to see in the real estate industry.
I'm taking it a step further and darker in my mind on this as well. It's the thought that if the Amazons and the Googles and the Facebooks of the world decide that they no longer need you working close to that campus, how long is it until they decide that they can start using overseas cheaper labor? I wouldn't be surprised to see this same circumstance that's driving down rents also start driving down wages. If somebody doesn't have to be working in the United States and they've decided that they could, what's the difference between having somebody work remotely from their home and having somebody work for 1/5 of the cost overseas from their home?
Yeah. I agree, and that's a scary thought. With the current unemployment that we have, if all of a sudden, rather than manufacturing moving overseas, just all of the jobs
We
starting
see
to go.
tech and intellectual moving overseas as well.
Yeah, I mean that unemployment rates are just going to skyrocket, which then all of a sudden you have less qualified buyers out in the market. If there's less qualified buyers, there's going to be less demand for the higher priced properties. There's less demand. That means the supply is going to start increasing. And now we start seeing downward pressure on the real estate pricing from just this snowball effect.
Oh, what was the article that you were talking to me this morning about with lending, change in lending requirements?
Oh, there was an economist that I follow. He calls himself the bow tie economist. And he just does these little snippets on pieces. But his theory that he pushed forward, and I haven't had a chance to do any further research on it, was so with the forbearance, as a part of that agreement in the CARES Act, the mortgage servicers are prevented from putting any negative credit dings on somebody. So you don't make a mortgage payment before CARES Act, you were getting dinged. You go into a forbearance agreement with that servicer, and you're not making your payments, but part of it is saying that they're not going to ding your credit.
Right.
So these lenders are looking at that and they're saying, well, wait a minute, credit score was one of the things that we use to determine risk in these loans. Right. So a better credit score was a lower risk. Well, now all of a sudden, if you're kind of taking some of that reporting away from that credit score, they're saying, well, now we can't really distinguish whether this is a good risk or a bad risk. So in order to mitigate our risk, we're just going to constrict the lending guidelines.
So maybe require higher credit ratings or larger down payments, right? And this again, when we look at that, it's the same discussion. If you've got stricter lending requirements, that means fewer buyers who would qualify for those loans. Fewer buyers means more inventory. More inventory means drop in prices.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all kinds of factors that are just coming out there that are, well, honestly, Rox, it's kind of validating what we've been saying, right? Everybody's talking about, hey, look at this great real estate market we're in. It's true, right? In today's market right now in the Denver metro area, it's fantastic to be a seller.
That's right. We've got less than a month of inventory, but I'll tell you, Gary Keller says that recessions happen slowly, quickly, and same with shifts in markets. We've got this heyday, this COVID hangover or bubble, where that pent up demand is still being satisfied, but it's going to stop. And we don't know if that stops in 30 days, in 60 days, in 120 days. Don't know.
Yeah. Or when we're going to start seeing an influx of and more supply of this inventory, right? If you're a landlord, back to our rental story, right?
Yeah.
If you're a landlord and all of a sudden 12% of your revenue just got taken away, you could easily go from a cash flowing property into having to pay to have a tenant in your house. And now all of a sudden you're subsidizing somebody's houses unintentionally.
Yeah.
It's going to feel good as a landlord to continue to do that month after month. And we may see some of these people start to try and liquidate some of those assets.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Which again will drive down the prices on them, which on the flip side of it, if you're a real estate investor right now, you should be gathering and rubbing together your dimes and putting them in a bank, because there are going to be investment opportunities. A same property that today is not cash flowing for an investor, but they end up having to sell it at a lower price because there's more there's more competition on the market for it. That same exact property with the same exact rents would be cash flowing for somebody if they bought it at a lower price and had a lower mortgage payment and servicing costs. So there's opportunities out there too. Which, when we're looking for silver linings, we got to somewhere.
Yeah.
So we never said we were the fun hour, though you are usually considered fun. But I think these are going to be the tone of our reports for a while. This is an unprecedented event, and I'm keeping my eyes on rental rates all over the country. I'm keeping my eyes on wage pressures. As we've been talking, the unemployment rates are continuing to be spooky, and of course the the great tragedy of this thing is probably going to be what it's doing to our small business sector.
Yeah. Small businesses are definitely going to continue to take a beating, as we've been talking about before, that they've already taken a shot to the chin pretty hard.
Yeah. All right. Well, gang, we'll see you back here next week with the Honest Hour.
Take care.